Welcome back to Colors Are Crutch, me boy. My name is Max Sturberg, also known as Wounded Satellite, and today I'm joined by my magnificent co-host Jordan Drake, aka Steel Dragon, where we're going to talk about our tournaments this weekend. Because newsflash, we're both alright at Magic, I guess sometimes. Fuck yeah, dude.
Sometimes.
You're killing it lately, brother. Your whole family is killing it lately, which we will get to shortly, I'm sure, in our explanations. Are you feeling better?
I am. That cold was not fun, but we're good now.
Your voice sounded fucked up when you when you called me that morning. You were like, "I don't think I'm gonna make it today." I was like, "Okay."
I probably could have done it, right? But then I'd sound like this the whole time, and it just wouldn't be fun for anybody.
It's a good voice, though. Yeah, but imagine. Can you say Yidris in that voice real quick, though?
Yidris. I'm in the Yiddy.
I'm in the Yiddy committee, me boy. But yeah, this week we both played in some tournaments. I was here in Denver, Colorado. It was super nice. The event was called Mortal Kombat 1. It was hosted by a combination of a game store over here called Enchanted Grounds and the Critical Elite HDI's Logan, Eric, Jason. I think he's technically a part of them, but he played in the event. He wasn't like TOing it like Logan and Eric were. It was a fun event. It was one that I was fortunately sponsored for. They hit me up a while ago at this point, and it was pretty funny. When they were telling me about the event, they asked me what I wanted to advertise it, and I said, this is a Denver event that I just get to wake up in my bed and drive to the tournament?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay, just give me entry. I'm like not worried about it, whatever." And they were like, "Sick." And then 5 minutes later, I went right back over to them, and I was like, "Actually, I have a request." And they were like, "What do you want?" And I said, "I want Suki on the guest page." And they said, "Fucking bet, dude." And so Suki, if you go to the actual event page for Mortal Kombat 1, Suki was a guest, which was really fun. Though honestly, I kind of regret bringing Suki, as I'm sure I'll get into talking about the venue and stuff a bit more. It had its pros and it had its cons, and one of the cons was definitely spacing on the tables. It was very tightly packed in there with like no room for Suki, so I felt a little bad for her all day because she was definitely cramped up could be for a dog in that type of tournament scenario, which normally there's just a little more space in the tables. We did have it worked out. I actually went to the judges at one point because we had like table 31 was like the last table for some reason, was just in its own little corner. And so I went to the judges at like round 4, I think it was. And I said, "Hey guys, like, do you care if I just play my games at this table so Suki has a little space?" And they were super, super chill about it and just locked me to that table, which was very convenient. So I would just get my pod for rounds 4 and 5 and say, "Hey, if you guys don't want to be in this super cramped shoulder to shoulder, put in like sardine situation, we can just go to table 31. And they all said, that sounds great."
Nice.
But yeah, it was a 120 something player event, 5 rounds of Swiss, cut to top 16, then top 4. It was a fun one. I finished 3rd overall in Swiss, ended up with 3 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw, 3-1-1 going into top 16. And it was an interesting day for Rogthras. I played Rogthras again, Godspeed to my enemies. And one of the cards that I have been barely using at all in casual games has been Song of Creation lately. And that's a card I genuinely considered cutting before this event. It was one of the ones that was on the pile of like, do I swap this for the Louis Six's sacrifice thing, the new legendary counterspell thing? And I almost cut it. And I said, "Nah, I'm going to keep Song of Creation. Like, it has its moments that it just feels so good." And today was a Song of Creation day. All of my wins were Song of Creation. Every single fucking one. It was pretty cool. Pretty cool. Yeah, round 1, I was against Steven Giles, Shauna's brother. Me and him have talked and met at all these events, but we'd never played in a game before. So we finally got to go against each other, and he called it out immediately. I remember I played Shifting Woodlands for my turn, and I knew I was going to play this Mox Diamond, and I had a Mystic Remore or something. I think it was Fish, not Ristic. And I remember looking at my hand and being like, "Oh man, like I really want to discard this Song Creation, so I have it with Shifting Woodlands, but playing the Mox Time and discarding a land got me to exactly 7. I was like, all right, that's fine. Like, worst case, I can just try and, mist Rise it in or something next turn. And then in my end step, the man decided to cast a spell and get me to 8 cards. And I said, oh, that's perfect. And I discarded, nice. I discarded Song, and he immediately goes, do you have Delirium? And I was like, yeah. He called it. Everyone knew it was coming. And then I really wasn't sure if I was going to do it because my hand wasn't like greatly set up for it, but just no one really did shit that turn cycle. And then I untapped and I was like, convince me not to do this. Like, just show me a SWAT or a Silence and I will happily not do this. And he was like, you do you, brother. And I was like, okay, anytime someone says you do you, brother, I'm totally going to do it. Because the risk with Song Creation there, especially if it gets silenced, is you discard your hand. Right. Which really sucks. But it worked. No one had shit for it, and it just meant that I got to storm off and win the game with Song Creation, which is so much fun. It's such a blast. And then
about that. Round
2, I got to be against the other Giles. I was against Shauna, who was on her Polymorph Niv deck. And, she was able to get out of Niv Mizzet. I tried to clone it, which was a huge interaction battle. The hilarious thing to me was she actually talked this other guy into, like, helping her try and stop my Flesh duplicate as she's drawn cards the whole time. And I'm like, brother, what? Like, I was surprised. I mean, it was great politics on her part. She was just trying to convince him that he would never win through 2 Nivs. So like, she was convincing him that it was better for him for there to not be 2 Nivs on the table. And I'm like, yeah, but you never beat the 1 Niv. So, like, what happens there? And then the game ended up just going to a draw. It was pretty unfortunate. We got into a big interaction battle, I think at that guy's end step, and then he resulted in him casting a Born Upon a Wind type thing. That one was also against Kevin. Kevin is a Denver local hero. I just want to shout out. He is such a homie, like a genuinely nice, kind soul. And this motherfucker just rocks Chatterfang. He'll like occasionally play Elsha for fun, but his deck is called Gary Chatterfang. And he was first overall in Swiss on fucking Chatterfang. And every event that he has played Chatterfang lately, he's been fucking people up.
Like black-green Chatterfang? Like
correct.
Crazy. That's
dude,
hot.
he fucks people up with this deck. It is because I asked him mid-tournament, I was like, how much do you think you get away with on Brewer's Advantage? He was like, oh shit ton. Because he was like, no one ever thinks I just win with 1 tutor, but I do, like, pretty much every time.
Interesting.
Because it's just Warren Soul Trader combos with his commander. There's a billion different ways to outlet it. He plays the what's the name of the guy that gives you the food, the treasure, and the clue for every single one?
Oh, the automaton, the
Academy Manufacturer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that shit, like, all those types of cards. So he's on all that type of shit, as well as he wasn't on Necro for this event, but previously he's been on Necro, and, like, every time I've seen the deck go, it's just cooking. And I think it really is the consistency of mana with the green, just paired with the consistency with the tutors of black and, like, the really strong payoffs of black, and the fact that he has just 1-card combos. Like, the deck actually seems legitimate. I don't think it's something that's top tier. I think it definitely gets some boost from the fact that no one else is fucking playing it, so no one knows what you're doing, and it probably gets a bit of that mental scoff from your opponents when you sit down at the table with it, where they don't focus on you as much, they're not mulliganing for you, whatever. It's very different when we play at locals and we all know what Kevin's doing versus going into an event where people don't know what's up. But, like, consistently every single event that I've seen him play Chatterfang at this year, he's been just absolutely obliterating people. He was in this pod. He actually got a turn skip, not for doing anything bad. He just forgot to submit his deck list. And I offered to the table. I told the table really clearly. I said, hey, guys, like, and maybe this is partially because I know Kevin's a homie and I like him, but, like, I said, I really don't like scuff games. Like, scuff games are ass to me. Even when they're in a tournament, I would rather just play a good game of Magic. So I said to the table, I was like, are you guys all good to just draw pass? I asked the judge if we could vote to not give him a turn skip. He said, no, he's been given a turn skip. He said, you guys have the option to just, like, untap and pass. Like, you can choose to do that as your prerogative, but do whatever. And the guy on Malcolm Bile, funny enough, he said, I'm a turbo deck. I'm okay doing the turn thing and keeping the game normal if we don't draw a card. And I said, well, we can't not draw a card because that's breaking the rules of the game, and I can't risk actual game violations given everything that's been going on. And he was like, well, I'm only willing to do this, like, turn pass thing if none of you draw a card because I'm a turbo deck. I don't want you to have more cards. So we didn't end up doing the turn skip for him, or, like, making it so it was not a scuff game. It was scuffed in that regard, but the game ended up going to a draw anyway, so no big deal. And then round 3, I just got fucked up by John Vick. Holy shit. The guy on like very different, no fucks given Rog Thras from OKC. He's like one of the OG Rock Thras guys. He's such a homie. I love the whole, shout out to the whole OKC crew. I mean, John Vick, Colin's a homie, Braden's awesome. Jesse I've recently met. He won the event. Like, he's been doing great. The OKC crew is super, super solid. And Vic is on a very different version of Rock Thras than mine. Mine is much more control-y. Vic is on like 2 counter spells. Like, this man is just go, go, go. Oh, I mean, he's on Cradle, Nick Thos, 3 Tree City, Empty the Warrens. Like, he won the game with Cloud of Fairies, Lily Splash Mentor with a Nick Thos. Like he's doing just shit that's hard for people to deal with, and he doesn't give a fuck about anyone else. His entire game plan is everyone's greedy mid-range and whatever. I'm just going to try and win repeatedly. And his deck's really good at winning, and his deck's really hard to interact with because it's pretty much all creature combo. So it works, dude. Like, he's made top 16 at pretty much every event I've seen him at. Like, dude's cooking. And it was nice because me and him have played a bunch of tournament games against each other, and every single time we've ever played, I have been before him in turn order, and I have won every single game. And so this time, he was on the play, I was in 4th C, and he got the dub. So we got to keep the joke going of just whoever goes first gets it there, buddy. Like, whoever gets it. Then round 4 was another dope-ass Song of Creation kill. This one, much less interesting than the first one, in that the first one was, a shifting woodland style game plan that just like was able to kind of sneak through in that really interesting way. On round 4, I was on the play and I mulliganed to 4. And the 4 I kept was 2 lands, Phantasmal Image, Rhystic Study. What more are you going to do there? Fortunately, Blue Farm played a Gemstone, and so their turn 1 play was a Lotho in seat 4. So I got to untap and go, okay, turn 2 Lotho with my Image. We're getting somewhere. I got a treasure, and my draw for turn was LED. So then I was able to play the Rhystic Study, and then play LED to make another treasure. And then I got 1 more treasure in that turn cycle and a couple of Rhystic draws. And then on Blue Farm's turn, he cast Dam. And blows up my Lotho. It's because it was me, Blue Farm, and then both other decks were VV, and they both had VV on the battlefield.
Oh, yeah.
And so he was just like, "Fuck this," and I was like, "Okay, that's fair." I was like, "It's fine by me." And in my hand at this time, it's like nothing. Like, it was literally, I think, a Gaia's Cradle and an Expedition map and like a fucking Pact of Negation. It was just like nothing at all. And I untap on my turn with 2 lands, 2 treasures, and LED, and I top deck Song of Creation. And I go, huh. In that neato.
Must be nice. Yeah.
Well, that's not a good song situation. You want to have a bunch of spells to cast, and you want to have mana left over when you're songing. The tapped out song from my goldfishing has not normally got there. But fortunately, because of the way this game had gone, and because I was against Bowmasters and I didn't have anything to do with him, I had not played Rograk yet. I had just left him in the command zone, which I've started doing that a lot more. If there's not a reason to play Rograk, don't play Rograk. So, I look at my hand and I'm like, okay, I have this Gaia's Cradle. I have the Rograk for 2 more cards. Like, let's fucking see what happens. So I cast Rog.
Sorry, not to interrupt. You don't like to just have Rog out in case, just to make people think you could have like the interaction for anybody that wants to pop off, or is that kind of like pod by pod dependent? Like, if you're in a turbo pod, you're like,
it's
okay,
pod by pod dependent.
Okay,
if I have a draw engine on the battlefield, I will normally play him. I genuinely forgot to play him the previous turn with my Rhystic Study. I should have. Normally, I will always play him if I have a draw engine because I can draw into those spells. I just completely forgot to. I just Rhystic LED past like as quickly as possible to like move the fuck on with things. Obviously, giving people priority the option to counter it. I'm not saying I fucking skipped anything here. But like, I was just like, all right, my game plan is Rhystic fucking LED make a treasure pass. But so I went for it. I asked the table first. I said, look, I'm on a mold of 4, and I flipped over Song Creation in my hand. I go, I just fucking top deck this. I don't want someone to just win out of nowhere here. I know we're at a board wipe spot. Like, show me one piece of interaction that stops this, and I will happily not cast the Song Creation. And everyone just kind of looks at their hand, and they go, meh. And I go, okay. I was like, I don't even think this gets here, because I will be... I knew I had the Cradle, so I knew I'd have exactly 1 mana with Rog post-Song. And so I tap out for Song Creation. I cast Rograk. It draws me another land and Wild Growth. So I end up going Cradle for green, and then I play Beseju as the other land. I tap the Beseju, I cast Wild Growth, And with the Song of Creation trigger on the stack, I sacked LED. And just said, fuck the hand. Nice. Well, it meant two things. It meant that I would actually get 2 Song Creation triggers, because I got the Wild Growth trigger, and then it gave me the green and the blue to cast Thrasios. Specifically was my thought process. So I cracked it for 3 blue. The Song trigger on the Wild Growth hit me Candelabra of Tawnos, which was really, really nice, because it was Cradle with the Wild Growth with 1 creature. It wasn't crazy, right? But it was helpful, because it meant that it mathed out really well to, because I had the 3 blue floating, I used 1 blue on Candelabra of Tawnos, drew 2 more cards, don't think they were relevant. Then I used 1 blue, 1 green, cast Thrasios, leaving 1 green and 1 blue behind from the extra Wild Growth mana and the 1 remaining blue, which I was able to put both into Candelabra of Tawnos to untap other random land drop and the Wild Growth Guy's Cradle. And then from there, it just fucking Mox Diamond, Mox Opal, Mox Amber, Lotus Petal, Chrome Mox, Mana Vault. Like, it just did the thing. And I was like, this is fucking gas, dude. And then once I Chatterstormed for like 15 squirrels and untapped my Cradle, and they were like, I think we're good. And I was like, well, let me, get there a little better. I think they finally scooped it up. I forget when I did it. I think I showed the Court of Calling for Displacer Kitten, and they said that's good. That's good enough. Because then
makes sense.
I could never run out of mana because of the Candelabra, and I had 15 squirrels, so it was able to get there. That was a really fun one. I love, like, Song of Creation is one of my favorite things to do in Magic in terms of how much fun it is to play out. It reminds me a lot of when I was doing Bolas's Citadel on Obnixilis. That's just kind of like non-deterministic, see what you get Storm, where you still do really need to care about your play patterns and sequencing a lot more than people realize. It's not just cast what you draw. Like, the order of your spells is really, really important for maximizing the value in your percentages there, and I love playing out those manual Storm lines. Round 5, honestly, just one of those, when you get those hands sometime, it's like, oh, this is disgusting. Yeah. Like, I finished my turn 3 with Seedborn Muse, Enduring Vitality, double Cradle on board. And I had an E-Zone, and I cracked the E-Zone on the Kinnan player's turn to flash in Biomancer's Familiar. And then it was in response to his Quarter Calling for 4, where there was a Gilded Drake. He was going to metamorph and steal my Seedborn Muse. And he had 1 card in hand at that time. Turned into a giant interaction battle, which, like, you wouldn't expect everyone to just randomly on turn 3 have, like, 5 pieces of fucking interaction. I also had, like, 5 pieces of interaction. But it did work out where the player on, I do not remember TNT. The player on TNT I was in 4th seat, but the guy who was in 2nd seat, so also second after me in the turn order, he used, like, all of his interaction. Kinnan used his 1 card in hand that was fierce, and then his final piece to kind of fully blow me out was the Mind Break Trap. And, the Kinnan players arguing really, really hard, like, just let me have the Metamorph, let me steal the Seedborn, like, you're going to lose to him. And I'm looking at it like he also just loses to you with the Seedborn spinning every turn. Right. You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of how that goes. I end up making a deal with him where I say, okay, brother, like, you're worried about both of us doing things here. I know I'm obviously in a great situation, but your concern is that I'm gaining all this value with Thrasios. I'll make you a deal that if you Mind Break Trap every spell in the stack, including my Displacer Kitten that was trying to be flashed in, including my Phantasmal Image that was going to make a copy of my Seedborn, and including the Quarter Calling, like, just fucking hit everything, I will not activate Thrasios for the rest of the turn cycle unless someone is trying to win the game and I have to stop them. And even the Tevish, there was a Tevish Kydel player in that pod for the win and in. They even said, honestly, I'd take that deal, because Kinnan's not making any better deal than that, because he has to spin. He has no cards in hand. He's not doing anything with the Seedborn. He's not going to make that kind of a deal. So, they decided me saying I just won't gain value off it was actually a better deal. So they did Mind Break Trap the whole stack. I got to keep my Seedborn Muse. And then that person's turn, he decided not to go for it. And the girl who was after him on Tevish Kydel was kind of openly saying, like, well, fuck, I have to push this turn because I can't let you just untap. And so I looked at him and I just said, and maybe he shouldn't let me do this. He probably shouldn't let me do this, but I just said the words. There's no downside saying the words. I said, look, man, she's openly saying she's going to push. Can I have the 1 activation on your end step? And he immediately was like, yeah, fuck it. Like, take it. And I was like, all right. And so I activate 1 time, and it was exactly Valley Flood Caller. And so I was like, I'll take that. And then I flashed in Valley Flood Caller, the One Ring, which is not activating Thrasios. It breaks no deals. So then, I have the One Ring with the Seedborn Muse now, even though I can't activate Thrasios. And then the Tevish Kydel player next to me, she untaps and goes, well, I have to try and win the game. This is my shot. Doomsday. And I was like, to be clear, you're openly saying you're trying to win the game. That means I can now activate Thrasios. And so I activate Thrasios in like my second activation, or I think it went Counterspell, Song of Creation. And I was like, well, fuck countering your shit. I'll just Song of Creation right now because I had Valley Floodcaller. And it was great. And it got there.
Nice.
It was very fun.
Can't complain about that.
Fun. Can't complain at all. And I mean, that was it. 3-1-1 in Swiss, ended up going into top 16 third overall seed. I was on the play for my top 16 game, which was a long one. And I might have to give a bit of a rant on the tournament format here. It's not the TO's fault exactly. This tournament was held at a Dave & Buster's. And Dave & Buster's gave them a original expected cutoff of 1 a.m., which would have worked out okay-ish. It still wouldn't have let us have completely untimed rounds, but it would have made things a little more reasonable. And instead, we were told the cutoff was like 11:45. And as a result of that, we had timed top 16 and finals rounds. And it wasn't like 3 hours. It was 100 minutes. Jeez. And then 20 minutes overtime. Fast. You got 20 more minutes than a normal Swiss round, which I absolutely fucking hated and despise and hope that never happens again. That was terrible, and it ruined what would have been an incredible game. It was a really cool game. I'll talk through it really quickly, and then I'll kind of explain what happened at the end of it there. This game was myself on the play on Rogthras. It was a good friend of mine, Temujin, playing the identical card-for-card Rogthras deck that we worked on the night before in second seat. We had Zachary Adler, incredible blue farm player, in third seat, and we had that same Tevish Kydel player from my previous pod in fourth seat. And this game was hilarious because me on the play, I went Fetch Land, Tropical Island, Birds of Paradise. And then Temujin in second seat on the same deck goes Fetch Land, Tropical Island, Birds of Paradise. And I looked at him and I said, how funny would it be if we had the same turn 2 as well? Because I was about to do some convoluted shit. And he goes, yeah, that'd be real funny. Well, my turn 2 comes around and I draw for turn, tap my Birds of Paradise, cast Gamble, and look at him. And this man breaks. Like, absolutely just starts fucking laughing. And I'm like, you're really about to do the same fucking shit, aren't you? And he's like, you're about to see, brother. and I gambled for Rhystic Study. I had Ancient Tomb and Mana Vault in my hand, so I was pretty good on like discards as long as it wasn't Rhystic. Did discard Mana Vault, so I was able to go Ancient Tomb, Rhystic Study. And Temujin was so annoyed because his hand was untap, tap Birds for Gamble. He didn't have a 2-mana card, so he had to go get Fish. So he ended up getting Mr. Gamora, and the entire game he was just like, I'm so annoyed that your hand was just fucking slightly better. But this game turned into draw engine game. I ended up with double Rhystic Study. Temu had Mr. Gamora the whole game. Blue Farm at one point had Crom, Timna, Esper, Rhystic, Mystic. And when they tried to resolve Smothering Tithe, the Tevish Kydel player actually bounced the Smothering Tithe, and what was it? It was no. It was when the Tevish Kydel player was stealing a commander with a Gilded Drake effect. They made the deal that she wouldn't take Timna if Zach let his misstep go in his next upkeep. His Mystic Remora go in his next upkeep. So it went down one draw engine, but like this was a game that like I drew the majority of my deck. It was one of those situations. And what's so frustrating about that is, as you can imagine, when we get into mid-range hell game, this game went to time. And it went to time in a way where a really important difference here as well is our play patterns were also changed by the fact that there was a time limit. Like, people were forced to push when they wouldn't have otherwise wanted to push. And it's a super weird spot for me because I know I win if we draw, but I also do not want to win through a draw. Like, that sounds miserable to me. And we got to this big spot where it was just me and Temujin fighting. We're both trying to do pretty much the same thing, but he has the Displacer Kitten to help him out. I have the Valley Floodcaller trying to resolve here, and it's a big counter war fight. And realistically, the spot we get in as we go to time and it's declared a draw, Temu's totally going to win over me. Like, that is absolutely about to happen. He shows me the hand with the Born Upon Win and the Breach, and like he is about to win on top of me. And what I told them at the beginning of the game, because I did not like this format, I said very clearly, I said, look, if there is a clear winner in this game of who's going to be winning this game when we go to time, I will concede to you. You win the game. I'm not just going to win because it's a fucking draw. And everyone was like, cool, sounds good. And so I was literally, Temu was showing me how he was about to win on top of me, and I was about to concede to Temu. And then Zach goes, well, hold up, I think I would have won, and shows Valley Floodcaller and like 4 counter spells.
Well, jeez.
And so then we kind of sat there for a minute, and I was like, okay, let's do a little bit of mental math here and see if someone's obvious. Like, see if we can actually say confidently this person would have won the game. And we even like each kind of revealed our top 10 cards because obviously we all had draw engines, and it got so muddied. I mean, Temujin was about to get a Sight Grift and a Flare of Denial. Zach had multiple free counters in hand. I was about to top deck my Flare of Duplication, which would have let me go for it with someone else's Born that was deeper on the stack. Like, it got to a really muddied spot where they both kind of looked at me and they were like, we cannot confidently say this. We both think we have feelings we were going to win, but like, take it, brother. Like, it's fine. I ended up making the decision, and I checked with the judge. I literally called the judge to the side, and I said, I just want to make sure I cannot get in trouble for saying this. I don't like this win. I don't like how this went. I'm going to be giving them some of the money I get from the finals game, whether I win or lose. Is that something I'm okay to tell them, and it's not some weird fucking breaking the rules thing? Because this, I said, I was like, this is not me, offering them anything for anything. Like, I've been told I'm the winner. That's just how it is. I don't feel right about it. And the judge was like, that's fine. And so I told them that they could each expect a little bit. What I ended up doing, because I did not win the finals game, I'll talk about it for 2 seconds later, but so I got $500 and top 16 got $150. So I gave each of them $100, so they each got $250 and I got $300, which feels right. Okay. Because it was going to be one of the three of us that won that game. And I really hope that they don't put time restrictions like that on top 16 games, because that just completely ruined what would have been a really epic finish and a really cool, interesting game. And that's not how I think. I don't know about everyone. Like, I'm a competitive motherfucker. I love winning, but I love winning fairly, and that did not feel right. It did not sit good with me, and I really hope they don't do those time limits. And then the finals game was even worse, because the second my game ended, and that, like, they were like, decide right now, are you the fucking winner? And I was like, and everyone was like, take it. And I was like, okay. And then they were like, cool, go to the finals table. Everyone else was already sitting down. Stream was starting, ready to go. Like, they were like, we have an hour.
Wow.
So like, we did not politic. It was go, go, go. I sat down. The game started a couple minutes later. Like, I didn't have time to fucking think, take Suki outside, hit my fucking vape, do whatever, go to the bathroom, nothing. Like, they were just like, sit down. I asked my friends, I was like, please bring me a glass of water. And we sit down and we played if you've seen the stream, it was like a 10-minute game because we were just going so fast. And again, the time crunch probably changed things there, because, if Colin was about to go for his conspicuous Snoop combo and I have the Force of Will, when I'm not in a rush, what I absolutely would have done there was show him the Force of Will and say, can you just fucking not right now? I don't want to lose to somebody. You know what I mean? And he's obviously not going to blow himself out when his entire hand was based on Goblin Recruiter. He would have said, cool, I'll pass it. And then I would have had it for Jesse's Reverse Thoracle. So, like, game actions are literally changed. How games play out is changed by them putting these time restrictions on us. And I was really not a fan of that. So yeah, I ended up not winning the finals because the guy, Jesse, had Reverse Thoracle when, like, otherwise I was a pretty good setup. Wasn't really the most interesting finals game because, like, you can see we're just like rush, go. Like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But the tournament overall, yeah, I mean, so that was the downsides. The pros, obviously, like, it was still run really well for the situation we were in. You were able to get food and drinks, and you could actually, like, I took like 3 shots before my top 16 game. I actually took a shot after round 1 as well. It was kind of fun to just be a little tipsy. I did walk into my game with Sean. I was like, I'll be real. I took a tequila shot, and I totally forgot I have not touched a calorie today. So, oh, you getting a little tie out here? I guess I have just been talking for fucking 30 minutes. That was my tournament. It was a fun weekend. I had a good time. Thank you to Logan and Eric and the Critically H people for throwing that shit. I'm not sure overall if I think Dave & Buster's was the best venue. It was just a little too cramped. You couldn't really have a place for your food. I got food at one point. It was like plate on half of my playmat, drink between my legs. It was not the best setup at all. But, like, overall, still a really fun day, a good time, great to see everybody. Good vibes is the way to put it. How was your tournament? Sorry for taking up so much time.
You're good. We all knew you were going to talk about yourself for an hour anyway. So 30 minutes is pretty impressive.
Oh my God. Thank you so much.
Ours was good. So Lily and I did what they call the dual land tourney at the gathering place in Raleigh. I was about to say Greensboro, but I was like, that's not right. Raleigh, North Carolina. So there's the gathering place does a monthly tournament where they give out dual lands. It's super awesome. It's literally every month on, like, clockwork. So for this one, they had, I'm trying to remember all the dual lands that were up for grab. I know that the first place was the Volcanic Island. I only know that because spoiler alert, we ended up taking that one home. But I cannot remember.
Hey, that's a dub.
Lily really needed, it was Volcanic Island is one of the cards Lily needed for her deck. So it puts her one closer I think
What
she's
does she
down to
still
like
need?
3 left. A Grim Monolith, a City of Traders, and Underground Sea, I think is all she needs. I
Okay.
believe. Because her
Sick.
Mox Diamond's real, and now her Volcanic Island's real. So
Sick.
I think those are the last 3.
If you ever need like an SCG Con style event, let me know. I have all of those.
Yeah, for sure. Thankfully, I've had friends like Dallas always lends me his Cradle when I play SCG Con. Yeah, Dallas is awesome. So I've been able to play like SCG Cons with TNT still, and I usually have friends that let me borrow. But yeah, so cool event. The place is also really cool. It's when you walk in, it's above a pizza place that they also own, and it's actually the biggest pizza slices in North Carolina. I think that's right. If not, if they're not they're huge. They're like, I don't know. Like it takes 2 paper plates to hold it. It's that huge.
Do they do that thing where they cook a whole pizza and then cut 1 slice out of it?
I have no idea.
Okay, because I've seen where you can make a 30-inch pizza and get a giant slice, or I've seen some places that will cook like a 20-inch pizza and they'll just cut 1 slice out of it and waste the 2 side parts.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it, honestly. But it is a Jordan-sized piece of pizza. This thing is probably like 3 feet tall. Like legitimately, it is monstrous, and it is amazing pizza too, which is really cool. But then the place itself sits above that. It's a full bar that wraps around the building, and then on the side they've got booths. And then as you head towards the back, that's where they've got like 10 to 15 tables that easily can support. We've played. I think the largest they've ever done is like 90 to 100 person events. So it's a really good space. It's never really all that cramped. You'd expect it to be just by looking at it, but it actually ends up being a lot roomier than you'd expect. And sometimes playing in the booths is really nice because they're perfectly set up for exactly 4 play mats. So you can sit comfortably there, and there's plenty of room to do everything you'd want to do. So really cool place. But they do this dual land tourney. We went up there with a bunch of our friends and had some other people come in from some locations outside of North Carolina. We had some people come down from Virginia come down from Virginia. Some friends come up from South Carolina. So that was really cool. And got to see some of those people. And it was a good day overall. So round 1, I brought TNT. My overall record was 3-1, technically 3-2. Spoiler alert again, we did not end up playing the top 4. Just gave it to my wife. So technically my record for the day was 3-2. But we played 4 rounds of Swiss and then cut to top 10. So first round was really, really good. TNT did everything I wanted it to do, got off the starting block really, really well. I was in seat 2. The Noctis player to my right, I don't remember who was in front of me, and then another TNT was in seat 4. It was a slow game. Somebody deployed a fish, I don't remember which player, and it just kind of stalled out the other 3 players who, one was paying for the fish and not really doing much. The other 2 refused to feed into the fish. And my deck is very creature centric, so I was able to play around the fish for quite a while. And it just got to the point where by the time the fish went away, I'd already built up a board. No one else had really deployed anything. So it was just kind of my game to win at that point. I was patient, deployed a lot. I had a ton of value. One player kind of decided he was going to push, and that wasted all the interaction. It was the TNT player decided to push a win, waste all the interaction kind of there. And then on my turn, I just stormed off, put all the pieces together, put a Seedborn down. Past turn because I was a little mana short. Went to upkeep though, and immediately just won on the spot. So really, really fun game though. Got to play with some cool people there, and I know one of the other TNT player, he was actually talking about how he was running my TNT list, and my current one is pretty different than my usual one.
I was about to say you gotta tell people what you're actually playing. It's not your normal TNT
deck
right now.
I don't want to tell anybody. It's a secret. It's actually
It's literally public.
Well, people don't know that though. It's a 59 person event, so how are you gonna find it? You gotta go look for. You gotta go
under the cutoff.
It's funny. The sad thing is, it's actually not a secret anymore because Datatog posted about it.
He did,
and that then led to people asking me about it in the TNT Discord. So then we just went ahead and made it public because it's like, okay, well, cat's out of the bag now. So. But yeah, so my TNT list is pretty radically different than normal TNT builds. It's been really fun, and the player, he was running basically my current public list. So when he saw me doing all this random off the wall stuff. He's like, "What is happening? What are you running?" So I showed it to him afterwards. He's like, "This is super awesome. I kind of want to build this," and he really liked the way the deck built. So that was really cool to see. Let's see, getting into round 2.
Well, hold up. You did not properly actually explain what the fuck you're doing. This is
Oh,
you
I was
built
trying to get away
dog
from that.
you built dog Thras with Tymna instead of Yoshi is what it is. So it's still sans red, but it's a full Cradle form. It's a Cradle farm deck that's based on Oboro and token creation, all that kind of stuff, but in TNT colors.
Yeah, it's Marnius meets Dog Thras meets some elements of Tevish Thras. I don't know that we borrowed anything that's like unique to Rog Thras, but it is very Cradle centric. And then just some off the wall cards that nobody's really thought of for their decks.
Such as,
like I said, we adopted some of the Marnius tech, so like Oscillate Pride, Charismatic Conqueror, really like easy for go wide strategies, just to kind of make the board really big, which helps push Tymna attackers through, but then also feels Cradle. So it really hits on 2 fronts and relieves some of the issues that Dog Thras sometimes has, where they're so Cradle reliant, there isn't really a pivot around anything else. Whereas we always can fall back into, hey, if everything else has gone wrong, we have we have Tymna, and we're going to start swinging like crazy because we have a wide board that can now actually connect. Because I think one of the traditional problems with TNT, we just can't connect with Tymna.
Do you still play Thassa's Oracle?
We do.
Okay, so you're still like backup planning and still just the Oracle people.
Well, right. I mean, when I say like when all goes wrong, we're never left to the point where we don't have any engines anymore. Because I think that's something that can happen really easily with like traditional TNT, or sometimes you'll see it with like Tymna Crom, where they are down to like, okay, well, I have Tymna, but I can't get Crom out, but I can't get Tymna to connect. My Rhystic Study's gone. Now I'm just stuck. And TNT would face a similar issue of our Thrasios wasn't efficient enough to spin. We couldn't connect with Tymna, and if we couldn't access Rhystic Study, then that meant our draw engines were all very suboptimal. And that was creating problems with the traditional TNT build of, if I couldn't amass any value, then I just get stuck having to like send win cons like Thoracle, and usually you're just sending them naked at that point because you're not drawing any cards, and that puts you really on your back foot where TNT does not want to be. Yeah, and I'm finding that the current build just doesn't have that issue.
So I mean,
no matter what,
you told me you were playing this version like for fun. Do you think it is better at this point?
Yeah, I do.
Actually,
it's more.
Oh,
I don't know if it. I do think it's better the more I've played it. So I've been doing the math on this. In my last 30 games now, I am 24, 4, and 2.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, it is insane. Lily hates playing me on it. She refuses to play it now if she can help it. Everyone I've played against with it just talks about how ridiculous it is to deal with. Because like even when I get board wiped, it doesn't seem to matter. I had a turn 1 Drannith come out Tuesday, by another player, and I never cast Thrasios until the very last turn, and I still won pretty handedly, which was kind of crazy.
I mean, it kind of does. You know, what I've said about Dog Thras is it has the issues where it doesn't have the backup plan if its board gets blown up, right? And what I like about Dog Thras is I can just pivot to Breach or pivot to Song. And you have similar plans. Like, you can just tutor for what you need to tutor for to assemble a simple A plus B or, you know, Thoracle or, you know, Hazel's type stuff. And it still has all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, we have all the black tools at our disposal. And we still have all the green tutors. We still have all the white silences. At worst, right? Because the deck is 21 cards different than like a traditional TNT list. At worst, you are basically able to fall back into the normal TNT plan of you can sit on a Rhystic Study and a Smothering Tithe and cast Seedborn, and it'll do all the things you still want it to do. But we now have 2 very different axes of attack that we just did not have before. Like I said, your Thrasios was too inefficient. Your Tymna wasn't good enough to get through. We've solved that issue, which was pretty crazy because I didn't think that issue was solvable. I thought you either leaned in one or you leaned in the other. I didn't think you could have your cake and eat it too. But so far, I have not encountered any issues with it. Sometimes we have to mull a little bit more aggressively than you would in the traditional TNT. There's not as many snap keep hands, I would say. And you have to be a little bit more thoughtful about some of your tutoring because it's just like the original TNT though. I think, right, like we've talked about before, traditional TNT is very, very tough to pilot, and it's tough to make the correct decisions during the game. This one has similar issues where the decision tree can be a little bit tougher as well, but I don't think it's quite as tough as traditional TNT because the deck can be really forgiving, because once you're into the Cradle plan or you're into the Tymna plan and you're just swinging and attacking and you're drawing a ton of cards, eventually it all just kind of falls together, and then you end up having a really strong base to play from. Once you're making 13 mana a turn, it's really easy to come back from any mistakes you might have made in the early game.
I'm sorry to keep pulling you away from talking about your tournament, which is the whole point of this. But one more question. I'm just curious because, when you first brought up this deck to me, you said, hey, I'm trying out this like fun thing just as like a thought project.
Yeah.
You were very much in the headspace of like, this is joking around and obviously worse, but I'm just going to see if it's fun. And so it's very interesting to hear you say for the first time to me that you actually think it might be better. I can understand how it is better in like the true mid-range because it's a little more consistent than Engine. I'm going to walk away and grab some water while you answer this question, but I can still hear you. How do you think it fares compared to traditional TNT into a turbo pod?
Pretty much the same, right? Like, we didn't lose anything, in my opinion, from a traditional turbo pod. We still are on about the same amount of counter spells. Really, the only thing we did was we traded out engines that are standalone good. So think of cards like Archivist of Ogma or Fairy Mastermind. Cards don't really necessarily need anything to be just good by themselves. If people are playing into them, they'll draw you cards. We took those out and we replaced them with like pieces that are more synergistic and kind of fall into a better strategy. So from that standpoint, I think it's got basically the same weaknesses as it would have had in a turbo pod as before. You're still probably relying on trying to get a draw engine down and scaring turbo players into not going for it because you're going to draw so many cards that if they do whiff, then you're going to be able to win off their back. I think that's always been like the best way to fight turbo with TNT is get down like a fish or a Ristic Study as fast as possible. Again, I don't think Stacks is good enough, and we're not going to outspeed them. So generally, that's the best way I've seen to do it, and then just politic aggressively against the turbo player or the turbo players, as it may be, and get other people to respond to them and kind of put people in a weird situation. I've also found a lot of success with like politicking turbo players against each other, where trying to scare one from not going for it because the other one will just push and go for it, if they whiff, helps sometimes, because then it creates like a paralysis in the pod of like chicken of who wants to go for it, and that's perfect situation for us because the longer they take to make a decision, the better we have of winning.
Yeah, I mean, you're a snowball deck at that point, so
yeah. And that actually happened this weekend, which I can talk about in my round 3.
Let's get back to it. Tell me about your round.
So round 2 was really cool. I got to play against a cool one of my buddies. His name's Guy. He runs Double Sleeved YouTube channel, and he was on his Rog Thras list. Very, had to play a lot against Rog Thras lately. I think seat 2 was Kinnan, seat 3 was Time, and then I was in poor old seat 4, which was a little rough. And that ended up being my downfall this one. This was my one loss of the day. So Guy got off to a pretty slow start. He mulliganed low. The Kinnan player had banked his entire hand apparently on a Birds that Guy mental misstepped.
Holy shit.
When that bird went down, the Kinnan player got locked out of the mana they needed to really progress their game board. And then Tyam basically started off a little bit slower, but started to snowball really quickly. I got off to a really good start, and I felt really strong about where my position was based on how the rest of the board was playing out. So gets around to the table. The Time player deploys a couple pieces. They have one card left in hand. I have the win basically in hand at this point. I have a Vamp Tutor, and that Vamp Tutor is going to win me the game. I know Guy and the Kinnan player don't have anything left at this point to answer. So I know all I need to do is grab Talon Gates. I've got the Aboro, and I've got enough creatures to start the loop. And so I'm like, cool. If I Vamp Tutor, we're good. Unfortunately, the one card left in Time's hand was, of course, the fucking Oppo agent. So ran headlong into the fucking Oppo. He grabbed my Bowmaster, started pinging down my board pretty aggressively. I played out Aboro anyway and started trying to see if I could just storm into Talon Gates. And I was very close. I was actually 4 cards away because I kept hitting lands, which allowed me to keep bouncing lands, keep untapping Cradle. And I was still like, even though my board was being pinged down, I was still able to like keep pushing because a lot of those pings were still in the stack. Unfortunately, it got to the point where it was like, okay, by the time my Oboro ran out of steam, I lost the Oboro and a couple other pieces. And I think I lost my Thrasios. And I was like, okay, I'm probably out of this game now. But it was, I could see what was happening. Like Time's board at that point is pretty powerful. Bowmaster giving them all those counters meant that we were going to be in a really bad spot going into their turn. Plus they had the land, which I cannot remember what it's called. It's something village, I think, where it gives all their stuff 1/1 counters. So it was going to be, yeah, it's like the green-white land, right? Where it gives
yeah. I know exactly what the fuck you're talking about.
I think it's like an Innistrad land.
It's a casual. It is an Innistrad land. That is a fucking casual card. 1 second.
Gavany Township. Gotcha.
Thank you.
Beat you
Thank you. Fucking Gavany Township, bro.
Gavany Township. So yeah, so that was on the board. I'd recognize that we were probably SOL'd at this point. So the guy, the Rock Drafts player, started trying to like find stuff, couldn't really find anything. Kinnan player ended up just playing out some pieces of passing with 6 mana, so couldn't even Kinnan flip. Turns out he had a cord that he was holding, but it got to the point where like something happened to the Oppo agent at some point. I think someone bounced it or killed it, or maybe got sacrificed on his board. So he tried to play the cord out at a certain point to endurance the graveyard and maybe slow the loop down. Time just went right on top. And
doesn't fucking matter. Time is fully instant speed.
The saddest part was, through that whole thing, I had 4 non-creature counter spells that did not save me from the Oppo, and then did not help me on Time's turn. And I was like, brother, please cast something, anything. I just want to counter it. I have all these counter spells and nothing to do with them. It was so frustrating. Literally, between the Bowmaster, the Oppo, and that nonsense, I was just like, God, I fucking hate Abs and decks. Hate Time.
I hate Time.
Let me counter shit.
It is my least favorite deck in the format for a reason.
Yeah, of course, I didn't see any removal that it would have helped at all, you know. Oh, well. Yeah, and then he hit the, because he was looping for a while, and he was getting really, really low. And what really actually did me in was I had a Abhorrent Oculus on the battlefield. That's how I kind of kept my Cradle count up. I had made a greedy play, and clearly was a mistake, because I actually think we get another turn if I don't make this play. But I ended up pitching my Devoted Druid to the graveyard and putting a Biomancer's Familiar face down. And he had Agatha's Soul Cauldron out. And that really hosed us, because he ended up exiling the Devoted Druid. And I knew there was a chance, but I felt like the best play for me at that point, because I'd already lost a lot of my lands doing the Oboro line, was, okay, I'll be able to play out 1 black mana. If I hit Brewmaster here, it's really my only chance of trying to get back into this game. And the Biomancer was going to help filter through my deck to find it.
Wait, you did that with Agatha's on board?
Yeah, no.
Oh God, no, brother! Holy shit!
I know. Misplay. Whoop whoop. Learned my lesson.
It happens.
It was too greedy. It like I said, we probably lost anyway, to be honest. But that was too greedy. It was a pretty big mistake. And at first I thought he missed it, because he didn't use Agatha's for most of that turn. And it wasn't until he got down to nothing left that he finally hit the Devoted, and I was like, yep, there it is. Fuck it. The whole time I'm like, oh, thank God he's missed it. Oh, thank God he's missed it. We're good. We're so good. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to exile that Devoted Druid over there. And I was like, oh, shit.
Well, fuck.
Yeah. Oops. Live and learn, right? Yeah. Too greedy. Way too greedy. I knew it, too. As soon as I put it in the graveyard, I was like, yeah, that was probably dumb. Yeah. Oops. Oh, well. It happens. And then he used the new creature from Tarkir. I don't remember which one it is, but it comes in and sacrifices a bunch of stuff, and then puts counters on stuff, and then on an ETB it sacrifices itself, and then it puts counters on everything, and then you just keep looping it back around.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called, but it was some new tech from the Dragons of Tarkir set that just came out. Pretty cool though. Pretty cool deck. So that round was a little rough. Get to round 3, and this is kind of what I talked about earlier. It was paralysis. So it was I think I was in seat 3 in this pod, but it was on the play. And I remember who was on the play. Atali's in seat 2, me in seat 3, and then Rog, Timna in seat 4. Who was in seat 1 though? Was it just Tim Necrom? I'm not going to remember who was in seat 1, but it was one of those games where the Atali was kind of there, and he ended up having to play control because Timna Rog got out a quick bolus of Citadel, but then got immediately stuck on it. So it was this weird game where like Atali ended up having to waste their expedition map on a Beseju so that we didn't just immediately lose, but then tried to politic around the Beseju for most of the game instead of like ever deploying it. And then by the time he actually cast Atali for the first time, it was already pretty late in the game. He whiffed really, really hard. I'd had a really strong board at this point and felt like I was in a very good control position. The Timna Rog player had really struggled to get through his Bolas Citadel line and had to make a bad deal to keep it around. Basically, the deal was if he didn't get Beseju'd, he was allowed to keep his... If he didn't use Bolas Citadel at all, Atali wouldn't Beseju it. Then Atali got greedy, had to crack an LED to get Atali onto the battlefield, got rid of the Beseju. The funny thing is, the Beseju was actually stopping me, which he did not know, because I had Derevi on the battlefield, Cradle, and I had a green tutor for Emil. So I was sitting there like, oh shit, like I just need this Beseju to go. So when he cracked it and whiffed on his Atali flips, I was like, oh, sick. I'm now good to go. Played a Grand Abolisher as my first card for turn. No one had an answer for it. Immediately green tutored for Emil, and then, that was game from there.
Easy.
And that's one of those weird games, right? Where had the Atali player turboed out Atali, I think we probably lose to Timna Raj, but like that's where I like to play the politicking game with them because it's like you can't really push because as soon as he pushed, he lost. And the Timna Rog player was in a position where if he lost his Bolas Citadel, he wasn't doing anything else. He was stuck. So, it was Tulane. That was the other deck. It was a Tulane deck. And it was my buddy Jalen who was running it.
Gas.
Yeah, and he was in a weird position because he initially wanted to fluster the first tutor that I did because it was Nature's Rhythm. That's what it was. I Nature's Rhythm for Derevi, and then I ended up harmonizing it out of the graveyard for Emil. That's right. I remember all the details now. It's coming back to me. It was a few days ago. And I talked about using his Fluster Storm in that game, and it wouldn't have mattered anyway because at that point I had Training Grounds, ended up drawing Training Grounds, so I would have had the Aboro if he had countered it instead of Derevi. Emil, it would just would have been a Aboro Training Ground line. But I ended up talking him out of it because his Fluster Storm was going to be really good for Rog Timna if they did decide to lie and just push, or if they had other cards to get around the Beseju. So I think in that situation, there was a lot of politicking that kind of went into that game, but I feel like that's what you have to do in those double turbo pods, where it's just like, hey, unless you're presenting win here, like I think you just have to let pieces go through until like someone reaches that critical mass juncture.
It's a tough spot to be in. Also, I finally found that fucking Tayam card.
What card is it?
Felithar,
yeah.
Which I didn't realize it can sack itself. That's really cool.
Yeah. That's how you loop it around.
Yeah. That's actually really smart. It doesn't give you the mana, but it gives you a shitload of counters.
Yeah, and if you're stupid enough to put a Devoted Druid in the graveyard and then get it segs out by that, and you have what was the other card that was under it? I think it was a Bloom Tender. So it was like really bad.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Yeah, if I remember right. Like it was.
That's insane.
It was bad. It was bad.
that definitely goes infinite with Felithar at that point. Yeah.
Whoops. Oopsies. yeah. Whatever. It happens. So then game 4. So we go to game 4. This one was, I want to say I was in seat 1 or 2. I don't remember off the top of my head. And then it was Sisse across from me, another TNT player. So this is my second TNT mirror. And then Hashaton was sitting to my right. So I don't remember the order, but I remember that's like how the table was set up.
I've never seen a Hashaton player win.
And he did not either.
I think this guy
was pretty new. He made some really critical mistakes in the game that, to be frank, he straight punted the game right to me with the way it ended up going out. There was a lot of weird decisions that just kind of happened in this game. The Sisse player got off to a really strong start and was threatening very quickly, very fast, a win. The TNT player and I recognized the situation and worked together to like slow it down as much as we could. He ended up having to, because going into the turn 1, I think it was going into his turn 3 or 4, he had set himself up for the Dahada line, the Dahada into the Chromatic Warrior line. Instead, he ended up having to grab Deadpool to save his board from a Bowmaster, which took him off the line, and he never really got another chance to push a win again because just the way the game ended up playing out, the TNT player was drawing too many cards through Mystic Remore, if I remember correctly. And I had set up, my board was kind of in a weird spot to where I tried to set up a decent board, but I really just couldn't get anything going. The Ashton player, he got stuck just like every other Ashton player I've ever seen, where he didn't have a discard outlet.
Yeah.
And so he was paying for a fish that no one was really feeding into because Sisay and I were just, all three of us really were just deploying creatures, I think is what it was. So I think, if I remember right, he was on, the other TNT was on Ristic Study by this point. And so the game just really progressed really, really weird. I ended up putting an early Devoted Druid on the board, and it just kind of sat there for a long time. The Sisay player, again, he never really had a chance to push. He ended up having to use most of his Sisay activations reactively to stave off TNT from winning. So, because I think, because TNT ended up silencing on a turn and then playing a Gifts in their own turn, but didn't have the mana at that point to really do anything else. So, because we gave them, the 4 cards they gave us were Gaia's Cradle, Devoted Druid, Deadly Rollick, and something else. I don't remember what the 4th card was, but it was irrelevant. And this was under a silence too, so like I thought this was a win attempt. But we basically talked to them and they said, okay, well look, we can't give you the Rollick unless you agree not to win, because we're not just gonna let you Rollick Sisay with Sisay holding the mana up to get Urtai. So he got put in a weird spot. I think if I was him, I just try to push win. But I think maybe he was low on his white mana to push the Swift reconfiguration there, which is why he couldn't go for it. Because he ended up having to Noxious. We gave a short story, to make a long story short, we ended up giving him the Deadly Rollick after he agreed not to push win and the Devoted Druid. He ended up Noxious revivaling back the Gaia's Cradle and then playing that as his land for turn. So if I remember correctly, he was tapped out before that point, and then cast the Devoted Druid with the Gaia's Cradle mana, and then I think spun Thrasios once. So I think it was a situation where he realized he couldn't even push win because, it was Lotus Petal. That was the 4th card. He needed the white mana off the Lotus Petal, and I told him we're not going to give him Lotus Petal under any circumstance. I kind of felt like he needed the Petal, and he was trying to like politic around the other cards. So that ended up working out. We gave him Devoted Druid and the Rollick. I didn't want, just in case he was holding the Hazel in hand, I felt like that was safer to make him cast Devoted Druid and then kill it off and waste a little bit more of his mana, and then just have less tools at his disposal at that point. And so he ended up having to pass turn. Hashidon finally was able to do his thing, and he got a discard outlet, discarded Consphinx, put Consphinx on the board. Again, at this point in the game, a lot of us, I think, had lost our draw engines to the various interactions that were going on the board. And so, because he ended up deploying that Rollick in turn, it got Urtied, but then he cast the Metamorph. Sorry, I skipped over some details. That's right. Yeah, let me step back to that turn. That's right, because he ended up casting the Devoted Druid, and then he cast the Deadly Rollick, to kill the Sisay. Sisay did go get Urtai after all, but to counter the Rollick. Then he cast Phyrexian Metamorph to counter the Urtai to kill Sisay anyway, which was pretty interesting. I was not expecting that play. And ended up passing with no mana up at that point. Then he did the Ashidon thing, where he got he got 2 cards on my turn. Again, he was never relevant to this game. Like, he's drawing cards off Consphinx, but he never actually cast anything. I don't think he cast a single thing on the rest of the game, if I remember correctly. Maybe a Wish Claw that he never activated. So it gets to my turn. I see an opportunity here. I'm like, okay, we just did a stack interaction. We know no one has anything because the silence was allowed to resolve. And, Sisay's tapped out. Hashiton hasn't really... he showed me his hand, and he didn't have anything. So I was like, okay, I think I can push win here. I've got Neoform in hand, and I have enough mana to push the Neoform line through. So for those who don't know, Neoforming Devoted Druid into Eternal Witness, Ewit then on ETB gets back Neoform Ewit into Hazel's Brewmaster. Obviously, at that point, your Devoted Druid's already in the graveyard, and that wins you the game.
Literally, the problem that costs 2 blue.
Yeah, 2 blue, 2 green.
Well, the Devoted Druid gives you the green, is what I mean. So all you need is 2 additional blue.
True. As presuming your devoted druid isn't summoning Sig.
Yeah.
Which mine was not. The unfortunate thing that I ran into here, and I was a little surprised, was the other TNT player let me grab out the Ewit, but then went to Pact of Negation my second Neoform. And at that point, I was like, okay, let's have a discussion about this. I was like, I will have no interaction for Sisei's turn if this is allowed to resolve. And they're like, oh. And I was like, yeah, like Sisei, if Sisei can figure out a way to push on their turn, like we just lose at that point. I was like, how about instead I just go grab a different 4-drop from my deck? I was like, I don't want to waste the spell. I don't want you to waste your interaction here because I'd rather have it if Sisei tries to put a big creature on the board that's going to win them the game. Because Sisei's
what
like
other
an 8/8
4-drop do you play? Emil?
At Emil.
Okay.
And I think he thought I was going to get Metamorph. Yeah, I think it was just Emil. I was trying to think if there's another one off the top of my head. And even when I looked through the deck, like there was nothing that was impactful.
What'd you end up getting?
So I ended up asking him if I could get Hazel's Brewmaster, if he was okay with that, and I just hit something else. I was like, how about I just hit Bird on Sisei's board and I hold up 1 extra mana, and that gives me 2 mana. That opens up my interaction for their turn. And he thought about it for a minute and he said, I'm okay with that. And I said, okay, perfect. And so I did that, and I got the Bird, and then we were good. And I was like, all right, at that point, I'm passing. I was like, Brewmaster's probably not going to make it back around. I've never seen a game where Devoted Druid's in the graveyard and Brewmaster survives a rotation. I was like, but stranger things have happened, so we'll see. Sisei
foreshadowing.
Sisei ended up not being able to do too much on their turn. I think they just spent all their mana recasting Sisei to try and set back up, but they didn't have anything in hand to really do anything. So they were kind of in a bad situation. Went to TNT's turn. And this time they did deploy the Swift reconfiguration. And funny enough, their own decision to allow me to have the mana bit them in the ass because I had an Abrupt Decay in hand. And so their Pact Negation that they were planning on deploying against, if I didn't use the interaction on Sisei's turn, okay, they can use it to defend it. I can see from his point of view why he decided to play it out the way he did, because from his point of view, it's like, okay, now I don't have to pay the 5 mana for Pact, which was going to take him off his win attempt, I believe. And I can hold the Pact up for defending my own win attempt. And I can see it from his point of view why he let it go through. Unfortunately, the Pact was the only thing he had. I had the Abrupt Decay, which cannot be countered. And so his Swift reconfiguration win died on the vine right then and there. He had really nothing else to follow up and ended up having to pass turn. Hashiton played out their Wishclaw. And then this is where I did not quite understand what happened here. The Sisei player started to politic against them using it for anything, and then tried to walk it back and politic them into grabbing swords, but then had kind of over-politicked into the player into paralysis, and the player just chose to do nothing. And it was a weird situation because initially I understood where the Sisei player is coming from. He basically told them, you can't use the Wishclaw, because if you use the Wishclaw and give it to anybody, that person just wins the game on the spot, which was very true. Like, that was objectively true. The problem is he then tried to walk that back later and said, oh, I'll just get a land to give it back to you. But I think the Hashdown player felt like he was just confused at that point. And I think newer player, so still trying to learn the game and figure things out. And I think in that situation, he just felt a little paralyzed by the situation that was going on and decided to pass turn. So I get to my turn. Remember, I still have a Hazel's Brewmaster on the battlefield. There are now 2 Devoted Druids in graveyards, and I'm sitting there going, holy shit. Like, does no one have anything? I'm like, certainly
presents itself.
I'm like, someone is going to remove this thing right here. So then all right, well, I'm going to move to combat first and just see what happens, and then we'll figure out a turn from there. Move to combat, swing the Brewmaster. Everyone's talking. They realize they have nothing except a couple pieces of interaction, I think, and I have exactly enough mana on board to cast Thrasios 3 times. At least that's what it looks like, right? So that happens. They decide, okay, well, maybe we'll get lucky on the Con Sphinx and you'll draw some interaction that deals with this.
You just
so at that
keep
point,
responding on top of the Con Sphinx. Who cares?
Well, I think they were hoping like I'd have to cast something or do something, and they'd be able to. I don't really know. While he's casting counter spells, like the Hashdown player will be drawing cards. Maybe, I'm not sure.
You have infinite mana.
Again, I don't think anyone else caught on to that. So I swung the Brewmaster, got the Devoted Druid. And of course, so I think, this is where they missed as well. Because I had the Birds of Paradise and the Devoted Druid, I have infinite mana of all colors at this point.
Yeah.
So I announced to the table initially just green. And the idea behind that was just to get all the interaction out in case there was more, and just to see what was going on. I didn't know what else could happen, but I was a little worried about like a late silence coming onto the battlefield or something. So I was like, okay, if they think they can just stop it this way, and then they've got me, that's fine. I'd rather them do that and then make all my infinite mana, and then do it again and see, like, I don't know. I was just a little worried about like a late silence. But anyway, I just ended up tapping lands and was just like, oh yeah, 2. Oh yeah, 4. Or like 2 and then 2. And, there was actually only one piece. I think there was only the Pact Negation after all. The other piece ended up not being able to be deployed. So I was able to cast Thrasios on the second try, and then that was game from there. So weird game. I don't think I've ever won with swinging Brewmaster and exiling a Devoted Druid, but it does say that on the text. People forget about that all the time, that it also has an attack trigger. So funny enough.
You got there.
Can't complain. I got there. So
Good
3-1. 3-1 coming out of Swiss. That actually put me as the number 1 seed. And then really cool, and for those who don't know, if you ever play into pods or into tournaments where it only goes to top 10, first and second seed go straight to top 4. They do not have to play in the semifinals. And what was really cool is Lily, my wife, finished the day 2-0-2. So 2 wins, 2 draws, and she was the second seed. So both of us got to go straight to top 4. Super nice. Didn't have to play the semifinals. So literally, while they're upstairs playing the semifinals, Lily and I are downstairs munching on giant Jordan-sized pieces of pizza, which was awesome, and talking with some of our friends who didn't have quite as good of a day. And we basically did that for like 2 hours, just downstairs chilling outside, enjoying the sunshine and the fresh air. And then we get upstairs for the top 4, and the other 2 players are a little burnt out. They're from Virginia, so they just want to drive back. And so we ended up not playing the top 4, like I kind of said earlier. Initially it was just like, okay, well, we'll split the prize, which I think the 4 dual lands ended up coming out to like we all walk away with $300 each, which again, fine. That's fine with me. I'm not really there for the money anyway.
Did you guys just buy the Volk, or what'd you do?
Yeah, so we ended up pulling our $600 and just buying the Volk, because I think the Volk was like $499 or something like that.
That's a good deal.
So I think we got a Volk, we got a collector booster, a Final Fantasy, and then paid some of our tab off from like food and shit we'd gotten. Ended up giving the win to Lily. She wanted it, so I was like, whatever, who cares? And yeah, that
good
was
husband.
that. So good. Yeah, exactly. Right? Happy wife, happy life.
Good boy.
The other idea too was to help keep the list a little bit more of a secret, because I wanted it to be a little bit less known going into the big Virginia tournament. So I was like, okay, if I'm first place and it shows Jordan Drake as the winner, people tend to talk about that. I was like, okay, but if it says Lily Drake, then it'll be all for Malcolm Vile fans, going crazy about that.
No, well, they
the
can,
funny thing is,
but it's not the same as the TNT. Yeah,
right. Like they can go talk about Malcolm Vile all they want. Funny enough, Lily was on TNT, so she's a traitor to her own kind. But I didn't. Say
what?
Or TNK? Sorry, not TNT.
Oh, okay. Way less
Blue
cool.
Farm. Yeah. No, the uncoolest deck, right?
the least cool deck in the format. The most basic bitch thing you can fucking do. Holy shit.
Do you see the comments about this? We get a lot of YouTube comments about how much we hate Blue Farm.
That's fine. I continue to hate Blue Farm. Let me be. Hold up.
Let me be crystal
We're
clear.
getting the close mic.
I don't give a fuck what the hell you think about me saying I hate Blue Farm. I hate Blue Farm. That is the honest truth. I think that deck is incredibly boring. You can be mad if it's the deck you love. And I'm not saying it's not the deck you shouldn't love, whatever the wording of that is. Like, if you love it, that's you. If it, tickles your fancy to play Rhystic Study and Grand Abolisher on repeat, then I mean that's what works for you, and I support you in your individuality, even though you're not unique. And for me, I just hate that deck because it's so fucking boring and so it just does the same thing every time. I know a lot of Blue Farm pilots who I love dearly. There's a lot of good friends of mine that are Blue Farm pilots,
and I love them as people, and I hold nothing against them for playing Blue Farm. But fuck that deck. Like I don't comment all you want. I don't give a shit. Thank you for helping the algorithm. Fuck Blue Farm. Like I don't give a shit.
Thank you for helping the algorithm. That's crazy. That's crazy. We feed on your. No, that's terrible. But yeah, I was hoping that the list would be a little bit more secretive, a little bit more less known. Oh well.
Last thing we wanted to mention today is a round of applause for Lily Drake, Jordan's wife. She has finally, deservedly entered the top 100 on the ELO board, which is something I've considered doing. And let me know in the comments below if you actually made it to this point in the video, if you think this would be a fun idea. Something I've considered is talking about, because I've been incredibly fortunate in being a sponsored Magic player to get to travel to all these events around every part of the country. And because of that, I've met so many of the CDH players around the country. And something I've kind of wanted to do some content on is like talking about the players that nobody knows about that are actually dope as fuck. Because there's so many like incredible players in these different corners or different micro ecosystems of the country that, you know, don't travel to all the big events per se, or just aren't as well known generically, but they are like some of the better Magic players I've ever played against, and they don't really get that recognition. I think it'd be super cool to talk about some of those players from the different areas and like who's actually just super fucking good regardless of what their elo or whatever says.
I think that would actually be really cool to do, because like a good example, I've heard the guy who topped forward the original Boyle on Sauron, I think he's actually somewhat local to me, and I've heard some people who say like he still is really good player, he just can't get out to tournaments as much. And so like I think that would be like the one, like that'd be the kind of person I'd want to talk about, is like, hey, these people are still really good players. We don't have a lot of like events really. We get like the one monthly event at Gathering Place, and then at that we're kind of at the mercy of Atlanta, Tennessee, Virginia to wake up the rest of our events for the most part. So
yeah, I mean, there's so many good players everywhere, and it is funny. The person who I originally played against that made me think about doing a video or writing up something like that, the cat's out of the bag on him now, is Colin Bennett from OKC. Who now like a lot more people are aware of, and he is a dope as fuck Magic player. But I remember playing against him, and I was like, this dude's like actually really fucking good at Magic, and like no one knows who he is. And it brought the thought into my head of like, it'd be pretty cool to shout out all the people that people just don't know about. And there's a bunch of those people here in Denver. Like very few people are actually aware of Tyler L or Sylvan, or like, you know, a lot of people know Jacob on Narset from the Mox Masters Chaos days, but like there's a lot of like incredibly dope players in Colorado here even that don't get recognition at all, and you know they deserve it.
I there's a lot in North Carolina too. Like we have Malik, who's I think his elo like puts him in like the 200s, but he's probably one of the best players. I mean, easily one of the best players in North Carolina. I mean, he beat Sam Black at the Black Lotus Invitational. I mean, that's no small feat. On Rockfest, which is crazy. But if you look at his elo, you'd be like, oh, well, he's not that good of a player. But then you actually go look at his results, and I mean, he's topping everything all over the state, and he's dominating. We have a Marnius player, Boomer, who's really good, who doesn't really get any recognition. Yeah, he gets no recognition really either. And I know how frustrated he gets sometimes, because everyone talks about Gold Sabretooth, even though he's been on Marnius forever. Like I think him and I at one point were the only two active Marnius players in any tournament scene, and he still is on Marnius even though I've moved on from it. And then Gold Sabretooth comes around, and now no one. Boomer, I know he's like pulling his hair out every week. Like, what is happening?
Yeah. Why does everyone care about this now? I mean, it happens all the time. And I've gotten those comments from a bunch of people, you know, even when I first started playing Rogdrass, like it's very jestful, but some of the people who'd been playing Rogdrass for 2 years, like jokingly poked fun. They were like, honestly, fuck you. Like now everyone's talking about this deck because you fucking like it is what it is. People like,
when you got people like you and Lamora and Sam Black all talking about this deck, like it's going to get eyeballs on it.
I mean, Pigeon's been killing it for a while on the deck as well.
Yep.
Yeah. We are getting a little long in the video for today, so I think we should probably cut it off. We'll save some of the good talk for later. Probably we can get this down to 115. We can get this down to 115, and that should be easy.
We need to do like a 24-hour Yapathon one day.
No, well, we could do if we bring on guests. And we bring on Waffle and Sabretooth and like all the real yappers, we could yap. We could definitely yap for a long fucking time.
Sabretooth, we know, can go for at least 11 hours, right?
Oh, whoa. Whoa. No, I love Saber Tooth. What a fucking homie, dude. What a wonderful, beautiful soul of a human. But thank you so much for listening to the Colors of Crutch podcast. Once again, my name is Max Sternberg, also known as Wounded Satellite. Here with me, we've got Jordan Drake, a.k.a. Steeled Dragon. Both of us individually offer CDH coaching. Feel free to hit up either one of us on Twitter or Discord to get that started. We also do have the Patreon up and running for the channel once again. It's not fully fleshed out yet on the tiers, but we do have some things ready for you there, so feel free to provide us support. We'll also have a link to our Discord in the description below. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.